Hey, ducklings, welcome back. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, your work mom, and
Your work unk.
hey, back on another episode of Out of Office. Hey, before we jump into it, Jose, I was gonna ask you, how was your day? How has your week been?
Oh no. Next question. We can't even go down that route. You know, too many bad things. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
piling on top of piling of
exactly. How was your week? Let's start with that. I'm sure you have
um
better stories than I do.
Well, I think my week, to be honest, is really just more of the same. But what I have noticed is that I think the older I get, the more the worse I get with managing my time because especially now that it's summer, I want to go out and play more. And I'm like, oh, I got work to do. And then I want to go out and play because it's summer. And then, oh, by the way, I have chores to do too. So that's a problem.
Uh, I thought you would have figured that out a while ago. You got to schedule this stuff out. You can't just go willy nilly playing outside all the time.
Yeah, I know. Easier said than done. And as a matter of fact, I started to pick up. Have you ever read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Yes,
Like,
I did.
so I loved that book when I first read it. And so, in the spirit of kind of procrastinating and then also trying to get some inspo to kind of do better, I started to reread the book and I was like, you know what? It changing your mind frame in terms of kind of like how you see things, even work and play or whatever, is part of kind of building healthy habits. I know we've talked about them in different videos or whatever, but I highly like anybody that has never read that book. I'm just like, it's kind of a game changer. Like, and it's a nice reread if you have read the book. So I'm going to put the link somewhere in all the things where there are links or whatever, in case anybody's listening hasn't. But I think that's pretty good one to kind of have in your library. So,
Highly recommended. Go for it.
yeah, let's do that. I mean, maybe in the spirit of talking about habits and scheduling time and time management, what do you say that we talk about that? Because I feel like it's something that I've had to learn over time. It's something that I've passed along to other folks. And then now being in a place where I have to relearn how to schedule things, both personal and professional, is probably a good opportunity for us to kind of open up that dialogue.
Uh,
Thoughts?
100%. I struggle with it. In my professional life, that's what I do. I schedule things, I get things done. I'm a project manager, program manager. I do it all. In my personal life, sometimes just things just get out of whack, and you just go, what happened? Where's all the structure that you normally have from your professional life? And you go, sometimes you just don't want to follow it, but it does have its merits for sure.
Yeah, I know. Like I know you and I have both been in on very similar, projects and environments or whatever. And I think when you're pushing deadlines or there are a bunch of meetings that kind of happen back to back, like it really, your personal responsibilities and even the things that you do for self-care kind of fall to the wayside because sometimes you just have those days or there are those weeks where it's just like everything is kind of running into each other. And I think when you're pushing really hard and the days, feel like they're becoming a blur, before you know it, I mean, weeks have gone by before you've even done things that, that were normally part of your kind of personal rotation. Like I was talking to somebody on actually one of our teams a while back and she was really having a little bit of stress and a little bit of a meltdown because she's like, I haven't had a chance to do laundry in like 2 weeks, and it was at that moment where I was just like, oh, I was like, we you know what? Sometimes you actually have to schedule stuff like that. And she looked at me and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, sometimes your days are so busy that you do have to block out time. Otherwise, you'll let the day get ahead of you. You'll let the meetings and the work, kind of take over your energy and your time frame. So I don't know if that's happened to you, but
Oh, it happens to me on a regular basis. But thinking about when I was younger, that regimented style is really helpful when you're younger. Okay, it can help you even now in the position that we're in our lives, right? For me, I take a look at my schedule every day, the night before or the morning of, and I make a plan for in my head about how I'm going to tackle my day. It's just one of my habits, and I start planning out where will I plan out work time and where can I find time to do other things that I need to do to stay sane in my everyday life. Okay. You can look at your schedule from afar and say, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing today and how it's going to work out. So,
yeah, I think, sometimes when we are in school and in class, when we have structured days, we know exactly kind of how our morning is going to go and we'll kind of break for lunch and, and kind of plan for activities, that are built into really kind of that structure. But then when you're out of a school environment or an environment that's been structured for you, part of the adulting and part of like, kind of showing up and really kind of owning your journey as a professional is really managing time. And whenever we hear time management, it's usually in the frame of, oh, managing my meetings, managing my work or whatever. But I like to expand that because it's like, if you schedule time to work out, if you schedule time, to decompress, whether it be, meditating or reading a book or or walking your dog or whatever, whatever it is, then you start to really kind of see the full scope of really kind of your day and your week. And I love it when I hear folks like they're part of a class, right, or they're part of a running
yeah.
group that meet on certain days of the week, because now they're intentional about working around that because they're trying to balance out their life. And I think that also translate into just the normal day-to-day kind of chores too, because like I was talking to that young consultant that was on our team. I was just like, listen, sometimes if you see a spot somewhere in the day, you just got to take it. Just schedule time, just block out that time to go to the grocery store, block out that time to to put a load of laundry in, block out that time to actually do the work. Sometimes you get into a bunch of meetings or you're involved in doing a lot of stuff on, like on the shop floor or whatever environment you're in, and you're just like, oh, I don't even have time to do some of the assignments that were given to me in some of those conversations or tasks. So being able to look at the full scope of your calendar or your day and just block off the time, you know I think that is really setting yourself up for success, not only with how you manage your workday, but how you manage your life. Like, and so, I mean, it's, again, I'm going to go back to the James Clear book, because one of the things that really resonated with me this time that I've been reading the book is, in order to create good habits, you have to look at the system as opposed to the goals. Like, because sometimes if you set up goals for yourself, it's an easy path to kind of say, oh, I didn't meet that goal, so now I fail. But if you chunk away and create a system, like, I'm going to be really intentional about, you know exercising from 7:30 to 8, and then kind of plot that down. Now you're building a system that you are now creating time for. So anyway, I'm a huge fan, obviously, of that book or whatever, but I think that it speaks to me now because, I'm having to relearn how to manage kind of my days and my work too. So
Thinking about it though, being for that young coworker of ours, and being young in your career, it's the perfect time to build a good habit. They're gonna get you through a lifetime of ups and downs. When things get really busy, it's those good habits of scheduling your time that are gonna carry you through. You're gonna appreciate that you schedule your gym time or your reading time, or to become a better version of yourself for the future. So those are the things you just gotta work at. To your comments earlier, thinking about finding the time and the gaps, remote work nowadays is really
Yeah.
caused our entire schedules to be thrown out of whack, right? Because now you no longer have to commute, so you have much more time, right? Um, you're working longer hours because that commute, that 45 minutes, an hour, whatever your commute was, is now off the calendar. So you go, oh, I'll put another 45 minutes in. But do you remember all the things you used to do on that commute? You would read a book, listen to a podcast, call a friend or a
Yeah.
family member, or just scroll the internet if you have the opportunity. Now you can't do that because you have to let your work life take over that time. You begin to suffer, and you're not budgeting your time wisely.
Yeah. I think that that is spot on, right? Because those of us that remember having to go in every single day, 5 days a week or whatever, it is, it is squeezing some of those things on your commute, right? If you're not driving, right? If you're taking the bus or the train or whatever, like, or even walking to work or whatever, you find those moments to kind of squeeze certain things in. And so now to your point where you have a hybrid environment or a remote environment, it's just like it's really tempting to just kind of roll out of bed, open the laptop, or roll out of bed and get to, doing is what you're doing and neglect all the other things that you would have had to structure once upon a time. And so I think that is a really great like call out. And I think one of the things that, in talking about, remote and hybrid and kind of kind of having really, I'm not saying more time, but really kind of more space to, to either start work or kind of fill in those days. One of the things that I think I like to be mindful of, not only personally, but as I, lead teams, is like, hey, you know, there is a gray zone in terms of really kind of, what you can slot in for your personal stuff throughout the day, right? If you, are calling to schedule an oil change, or if you are, going for a doctor's visit or something in between, meetings or, or big things that are happening at work, that is fine, right? But there are circumstances where, had to pull somebody aside and say, hey, you cannot schedule a yoga class or an outing, during core work hours where we have standing meetings or that there are things that are going on. That kind of flexibility, that kind of gray area, that's part of being a responsible, team player or just a responsible person who's getting paid to do the work, right? There's some things that you kind of have to really kind of make better choices about. Just because you have flexibility doesn't mean that you can take advantage of the environment. I'm really talking about like, hey, if you've got a 2-hour gap between one meeting and the next meeting, and you have an opportunity to go, to go pick up some groceries for the night, by all means, go do it. But if you've got a 2-hour gap and you decide that you want to go take, the rest of the day off because there's a concert, that's okay. You just got to let somebody know, right? I mean, you can't just like slip out and think that that's part of the deal of having, a hybrid work schedule, because that ain't it. So,
I agree with you 100%. Work, mom. Think about it. Work is an important part of who we are and how we identify ourselves, but it's not. It's only one facet of the complex persona of who you are. All right. Don't let it take over. Respect it. Give it the time that it needs. But when it's time to walk away, walk away. You know. And on the other end of that, because there's two sides to that same story, right? I'm the biggest proponent of spontaneous time. Trust me, you're not going to find someone who likes spontaneous time more than me and relaxation. But you need to be able to work within the confines of a set schedule. Because if you don't, then you'll always be subject to the spontaneous, and that can be good or bad, or even really bad. So you got to measure that out really carefully.
yeah,
I mean,
I sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just think of all the times someone has approached you to ask you if you have a time on your schedule for a certain activity or to do something, right? But the problem is that you never scheduled it, and anything you don't know if you're going to be busy or not, and it becomes much harder to plan other events, especially the fun ones, if you don't have a glimpse into your schedule. I say one thing every time I look at my schedule. If it's not on my schedule, I'm not going because I don't know about it. So I try
Yeah,
to make sure that I respect the schedule as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you know, that you said, and it reminds me of in terms of kind of just respecting the schedule, but it also goes back to really kind of respecting the fact that any one of us, we're full human beings with a whole lot of things that, are of interest to us. And the older I get, the more I realize I honestly, when I was younger in my career, I like working. I liked the type of work that I did, which is why long hours and deadlines didn't bother me so much, whatever, because it was really interesting to me. But what I realized is that when you like working and the days run into each other, you forget that there's this other part of your life that your job is supposed to pay for your life, right? Your job, if you happen to like your work, that's amazing. That's great because you got to work, right? Until you don't. But not losing sight of the fact that your job pays for your life, you
Mhm.
know, you got to remember that you do need to be spontaneous where you can be. You do need to schedule time with your friends. You need to schedule time to go things and do things that you like because, you know, that keeps life interesting. That keeps you interested in doing the work and it keeps you, growing in other spaces. You don't really know what's out there and sometimes really being able to schedule the opportunity to do something outside of work is just as important, if not more important, to your longer term self care. So anyway, I think I don't know. I think we have probably talked this one pretty thorough. I don't know what else am I missing here because I think that's
Well, now that you
pretty
mentioned that, let's start wrapping this up.
yeah,
So, about that time.
great.
So, what are work on takeaways on this? One, plan your days because you have less and less control of them as life gets busier. So, just start planning them. Okay. Look at your schedule in advance so you can plan ahead and how you tackle certain things and meetings and the things that just pop up. When you don't schedule, you risk losing actual free time to the things that you want to do. So make sure that you schedule it. Don't abuse your work time to take care of personal activities. You got small things to do, that's fine, but leave the big things for the days off. Build good habits that will protect you when times get busy and you don't have time to think about the other things. So, and lastly, don't neglect the people who support you and keep you sane. That's really important. And I know that we're talking about just scheduling, but it comes back at the ultimate. Your entire support system. You need to let it support you. You need to recognize it.
I love all the points that you brought up because I think that does a nice job at really kind of summing up everything that we talked about. And so, if I were to kind of leave our takeaways to wrap us up, I think first thing is one, time management really happens both at work and in your personal life. So, being able to develop good habits and structure and systems for doing that. Will pay off not only in terms of your productivity at work, but really how you're able to enjoy your life because you have allotted time to do fun things that don't necessarily require a spreadsheet or welding or retail or whatever it is that you do for your day job. I think the other thing that I would say is that you need to find the opportunities, use the downtime in between work to slot in some of those things, whether it be self care or just chores. I mean, this goes back to your point in terms of kind of having hybrid and gray opportunities to just, to kind of slot in some things that are probably important that you can weave in through the day. And then I think the last thing is that, more importantly, work it's an important part of who we are as adults, as contributing, members of society and folks that really, have things that they want to accomplish in life. But at the end of the day, work pays for your life, and it shouldn't just be your life. I had to learn that for myself because, again, as somebody who likes to work, realizing that you know what, all work and no play gets pretty boring. So,
Yep.
so on that note, I think more importantly it's time to go live it. Go live your life. So, um, uh, on behalf of your work mom
And
and
you work, and you work, Unc.
until we see you in the next one, have fun. Go live that life. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
I